How are we, people? Sorry. What was that? How are we, people? We are live. Well, I'm going to talk about that Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt main event, as well as all the other fights on the card. But I think I'm going to kick off with a Shabazian and Hermanson fight because that was a very interesting fight. I guess. Please let me know what you think and what you thought of the fights as well. Where you think that leaves people. I'm going to kick off with Hermanson and Shabazian because I'm actually quite curious what people where does that leave Hermanson in the middleweight division. Um, I think that I like Hermanson. I'm a big fan of Hermanson, but one of the things that kind of throws me off a little bit is how's he going to deal with those better strikers in that division because his grappling's good. His grappling is very good in that middleweight division, but it's not. I don't. It's well, it isn't one of the best, so to speak. Like as I think Vittori showed that. Like Hermanson had a good fight with Vittori. It wasn't all one sided. It kind of looks like people act like it was a one sided beatdown by Vittori, but it wasn't. Um, but I think that there's some good grapplers in that division as well. So I don't know how he's going to deal with that the upper echelons. Like, let's say you gave him the winner of Till and Brunson, say for instance. Um, I can't see him out wrestling Brunson, and after seeing how he handles some of that striking, I don't know how he'll handle someone like Till striking. And I don't know that he'd be able to take Till down and beat Till up on the ground. I like Hermanson a lot, but he still looks kind of flabbergasted a little bit when dealing with strikes, and especially when it's good strikers coming at him. So that's one of the things that I found pretty interesting. Like his ground and pound when he gets you on top. If he doesn't rush, I feel that he rushed a little bit with Shabazian in that second round, but on top, if he starts landing shots on you and on the ground, on the ground in general, he's pretty dangerous. He's a very, very dangerous guy. But he has to get you there and he has to get you in those positions. Um, but if he can't, he wears a lot of shots, and those shots I think are a little bit scary, and especially knowing who's up there in those upper echelons. I don't see him being able to really compete with some of those top guys. In particular, say with Israel or with Rob, I don't see how he could really compete there. Like they're two good strikers that with really good takedown defense. Pip Dennison says, "Que pasa, jefe? How are you, sir?" Um, so that was just that. My I didn't love the card. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought it was okay card. I didn't love it. It won't be a huge look. We won't be here for a long time with this one. I think it was just going to be a real quick one. And yeah, it was the other one that surprised. Carla Esparza. She really surprised me against Yan the way. Um, AC says I'm rock hard for this one, fellas, mate. It wasn't the greatest of cards. Randy says, "Yo, happy to catch another live one." Thank you, Randy. Um, yeah, Jared Vandera surprised me in the heavyweight division. He really surprised me actually. I didn't think that he'd be able to take. There's no way that I would have thought that he'd be able to take Justin Tupper's shots like that. Um, his ability to take shots and give them back, man, and give them back to Justin, that was pretty impressive, man. I yeah, I didn't think I like the way he was stepping outside of that lead foot and throwing the right punch down the middle. Ahmed says, "Hello, hello. How you doing today, sir? I hope you're enjoying yourself and having a great day so far." I am, Ahmed. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us, mate. I'm just talking about the fights in general, just what I thought about a few of the fights. Nothing, nothing set in stone necessarily. Um, yeah. So the Justin Tuffer fight was the one I was talking about just then. Jared's ability to get outside, throw that right hand down the middle, throw that right kick to the body and to the head that he was throwing on Justin, that really, I think, surprised everyone, took its toll on Justin as well. But Justin's super tough as well, super hard. I don't know how he took the punishment that he took. Both those guys ate a ton of shots. it was that was a crazy fight. It had to be fight of the night, I think, in as far as that was concerned. Carla Esparza versus Jan was impressive from Carla's perspective, although I think Carla looks tiny and she always looks too small for the division. Always looks too small. Um, yeah, super impressed with Carla and her wrestling and the way that she was able to do that. In the bantamweight, we had Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. Ahmed says both of them had great chins, and both of them had amazing chins. I don't even know how you can take shots the way that both of them did. You know, like that was pretty brutal. Glenn McKay says, "Hello, sir. Enjoying your show. Awesome information, guys. Please, mate, ask whatever you want. We'll have a chat about it. More than anything, I want to know what you guys thought of the fights and how you saw and what you think happens next for people in that division. The Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt fight. I feel in that fight was one of the best examples of a good jab, and Rob Font was able to do that so well. It also showed Cody had a massive lack of answers for the jab. The way that Rob was throwing that jab, he wasn't stepping into it and committing to it and throwing a lot of power behind it. He was just kind of flicking it out. But it was really hard for Cody or for anyone to get the timing on that. That coupled with I think a big reach advantage that Rob had made it very difficult for Cody to be able to get a good read and to even find a counter because he was throwing stuff. He was throwing things to try and counter that jab like he's trying to throw his right hands. He tried to back out, go up against the cage to try to find a side door out, or to be able to counter it like he did against Asun Sao. But he wasn't able to do any of those things. And a lot of that as well was Rob was able to throw the feint, but then he was able to throw the jab rather, and then be able to feint behind it. So you couldn't tell when the jabs are coming. Now the jabs weren't necessarily hurting him, but he was able to start throwing one jab, two jabs, and then the right hand straight after it. And after a while, those things start to hurt. The combination of those things start to hurt. And he was landing them very flush. I think another thing that happened as well, even on the ground, Rob Font was in control, was in very good control. Like even when he got taken down, his jiu-jitsu was very good. It was very impressive. He was able to nullify that, not get hurt, even attempt some submission attempts, get back to his feet. And that didn't allow Cody to be able to take him down, control him, and be able to get some rest or be able to get some sort of situation where he's able to stop him. And so when you can't stop someone and they get back up or they're still active doing jiu-jitsu, you can't hold them down or you can't do any damage. The takedowns that you're doing, you feel the person doing the takedown starts to take their toll on you. So Cody towards the end wasn't able to go to that. He wasn't getting damage off in those positions either. Matt Heffler says the opening fight was the best on the card. I know Rafael Alves was reckless, but he was crazy exciting to watch. Ahmed Abdul says, I believe Rob Font can become the 135 undisputed champion. What's interesting there, though, is I think someone like Aljamain, his wrestling and jiu-jitsu, that combination of the two, would be a very interesting one with Rob Font because I think Aljamain's got proper jiu-jitsu level. Like his grappling level is very high. He's got very good grappling, very good chokes. So that one depends. And I also think that guys like Peter Yan can really bang, and Yan's had like 130 amateur boxing fights. So I kind of feel they're both those guys for different reasons are bad matchups for Rob Font. I don't know that he outboxes Peter Yan. I think he might outbox a lot of guys in that division, but I don't think that he necessarily will outbox someone like Peter Yan. Juice says, "What's the standard defense of the jab for the jab?" I'm assuming. I think it depends on because see when people say a jab, and we had Volkanovski on the podcast, he was talking about it before, and he made a very good point, which is true. There's all sorts of different jabs. Like you can jab like straight down the pipe and barely move your feet. You can just flick it out. You can have your jab low on your lead hand and just flick it out. You can jab and step in and put a lot of power behind that jab. You can throw looping jabs. You can throw a kind of like a shovel punch jab. You can throw all sorts of different jabs, and the counters are different. But one of the good things that you're seeing in MMA, which I thought Cody was going to try and employ, but he wasn't able to, and I think a lot of that had to do with the reach disparity as well. The calf kick is very, very good at putting boxes, stopping boxes, pausing boxes, not letting them step in. You saw that with Max Holloway against Volkanovski. You saw McGregor get calf kick. You see that against a lot of good boxers. That would stop people coming forward, but Cody wasn't able to get that off. He wasn't able to get that going. AC, sorry, Ofon says Rob Font. I feel he would smoke Peter Yan. Man, I don't think so. I don't think it would be interesting, but I don't think he'll smoke Peter Yan. I don't think it'll be an easy fight for either one of those guys, but I don't think he beats Peter Yan like that. I think Peter Yan, his level of boxing is very high, man. His level of boxing is very, very high. Um, he's one of the better strikers in MMA. I don't know that Rob Font outstrikes Peter Yan. And Peter Yan has also got really good takedowns himself, and the way that he does the takedowns are not massively taxing takedowns. He's not like a big blast double guy. He's got a lot of interesting trips and outside reaps that he does inside those combinations, and that throws you off as well. Breaks your rhythm and doesn't let you set your feet, kind of like Lyoto Machida would have done back in the day as well. He had a lot of interesting takedowns like that. And more than anything, they just kind of break up your rhythm. And I don't know that Rob Font has the grappling himself to start asking a lot of different questions of Peter Yan like that. So I don't necessarily see him beating Peter Yan. I'd have to disagree there. But it'd be a great fight. I definitely want to watch that one. Sorry, I'm just making sure I get everyone's questions in. Matt Heffler says Font versus Aldo or Sandhagen. Winner gets a winner of Sterling Yan too. That would be a very, very interesting fight. That would be a really interesting fight. I would love to see Font versus either one of those guys. They both present very different problems for him, but kind of would like to see him fight Aldo. I think that would give like a kind of really good impression of where he's at, and I'd also like to see if Aldo brings out those leg kicks that can stifle a boxer's progression. So that would be really interesting. AC says people always talk about the Cody who fought Cruz as some mythological fighter, but all his KO losses have come by a counter right. Even the Ascensal win, it was another wild overhand KO. I think that the way that he fought Cruz and the way that Cruz matched up with him, he showed that he is capable of being a cerebral fighter, of being able to bring different facets to the table. He can do that. I don't know why he doesn't in general. I think that Cruz's footwork, and I think the fact that Cruz had fought so many of his stablemates at the time allowed him to have fought that fight many times in his head. So he came in there very, very, very well prepared for Cruz, and he was able to really, put that into action. He's had, I think he's had like 30 or 40, something like that, 30 or 40 amateur boxing fights, and a whole bunch, like he's wrestled, growing up on that. So he's a very well-rounded fighter, and he's got very, very good skill sets and a lot of power in that division. And that can't be like overlooked. AC, is he one-dimensional? I don't think he's one-dimensional. He showed that he can wrestle, and if there's a silver lining for him in this Rob Font fight, is that one, he took some good shots. So, how much he takes a lot of criticism for being chinny, and he might be a little bit chinny. He took a lot of damage. He showed that his cardio was good. He showed that his conditioning was really good, and that he was also able to wrestle, because I haven't seen him wrestle to that extent before in any fight. And he showed that he was able to do that, and he showed that he does have other dimensions to his game. So I don't know how. I would have said he's probably a little bit one-dimensional earlier, maybe, but he showed that he has those things. You know what I mean? So I don't know. He was a step behind Rob Font. He showed that he didn't really have an answer to the jabs. He kind of let Rob Font hit him, kind of thing. Like didn't move out of the way to the jabs when he couldn't slip the jabs. He couldn't parry them because Rob was feinting and then hitting him and wasn't hitting him hard. There wasn't a lot on those shots, but you can't, it doesn't take a lot as well for it to snap your head back, for it to make you not be able to see the next shot that's coming, which is a right hand, or double up on the jab like Rob Font was doing, and then hit him with the right hand. Those things were He was really really doing well. And then it makes it really really hard when you take a guy down and you can't do damage and he gets back up. Big problems. Um, Off Ofon says Peter Yan's setups are amazing though. That's what I'm saying. Peter Yan's got is a different story. Peter Yan's got a lot of power again. Another guy with a lot of power in that bantamweight division. Hits really hard. There's a switch hitter as well, which makes it even harder. And then he's got a lot of takedowns from just trips and out of reaps and that just break up your timing, take you to the floor. And he can go to the floor with Rob Font. So yeah, Peter Yan's pretty exceptional. Ofon says AC don't dimensional, by the way. Sorry, I didn't mean to beat that guy. I knew what he meant. Ofon says, I hope you're right, Fab. About what, man? About what? Roy C says Sterling has good kicks too. It might challenge Font's management of distance with a jab and a heavy front foot. Yeah, like Sterling had the thing with Sterling is his ground game is very good, man. He's got his ground game's proper good. Like he competes in grappling tournaments against really good grapplers, and he does well. And he's got a good wrestling background, so he throws his kicks with impunity, and I think that will probably throw people off as well. And so I think you are right with that. Ofon says Peter Yan is my favorite fighter to watch. One of mine too, man. But it's so crazy in how like a year and a half bantamweight became the most exciting division. I agree with you, man. I can't remember who I was talking to. Oh, yes, Hassan Ahmed I was talking to earlier. Um, it's like that, man. Like it looks like there's no one around, and then all of a sudden you have a resurgence or you have a surgence of just new fighters. They just come out of nowhere. They just so this one in particular is a very interesting division. I think bantamweight right now is probably one of the most exciting divisions, if not the most exciting division. Then the phenomenon at bantamweight that's occurred now is that you've got like a whole bunch of guys like that can hit hard. They can hit hard and knock you out at bantamweight, which is pretty rare. Ahmed says, when does a fighter's prime start, in your opinion, and why? I think a fighter's prime depends on fighters. Some people hit their prime a little bit earlier, depends on injuries, etc. When you refer to a prime, do you refer to like a prime where the person was not necessarily able to see what could have been their potential prime, and so you saw the best of them at 23, but you didn't get to see any more due to injury? Or do you mean their prime, like as in fighters in general? When do they hit their prime? Because I would say somewhere in your 30s, in your early 30s, late 20s, probably early 30s. That's when you hit your prime, because I think you hit your physical. That's when you're physically at your strongest. Your reflexes, everything at around 30. That's when you're strongest. But I think even when you're a little bit older than that for fighting, because it brings 31, 32 around there, because you have all your experience, all your mistakes you've made outside, all the different training that you've done, et cetera, all your experience, because nothing can teach you more than experience can. And you have all of those things together, and if you're able to keep your physique, you're able to keep your body together into your 30s, you're going to do really, really, really well, because people can't catch up. They can't catch up to 10, 11, 12 years of you fighting at the top, and you're doing really, really well. And now you've got all of that experience, you've got all of that strength, and it's very hard to combat. Now, having said that, it doesn't last long. The peak and then gone. Ahmed says Sterling is still an extremely elite fighter in the division. Well, he's the champ. He's the champion. Ofon says, I can't believe Aldo was able to make bantamweight and look good with the cut. To be honest with you, man, he was a guy that, remember back in the day, he was at featherweight, and they were talking about him going up to lightweight and fighting. I remember seeing him in real life, and I always thought he would be a good bantamweight. Same as Frankie Edgar. I always thought that they should go down to bantamweight. Like, Aldo's a little guy. He's little. He's like a small guy. It surprised me how little he was when I saw him. Very like muscular and athletic guy, but he's small. Like, he's a little guy. Ahmed says, I honestly believe the hate Sterling is receiving is just absolutely unnecessary, in my honest and humble opinion. I agree with you. I don't think he deserves the hate. I think, like I've said that before on the podcast and that. it shouldn't be left to him. It shouldn't be up to him if Peter Yan gets disqualified. That should be very straightforward situation. It should be you got kneed in the head, you were down, you got flattened out, like you got hit and you got flattened out. That's it. That's a fight. That's over. Like it's like doing a handball in soccer when you're in the penalty area. If they don't ask the other team if they want to take the penalty, that should be that. Like if the don't get me wrong, if you cop a knee to the head, you kind of stumble, but you're all right. It's cool. But once he's fallen, right, and I'm not saying what he was right, but once he's fallen and he's on his back, and you would let's say if it was kickboxing, would it have been a TKO? Like as far as like someone got dropped and you counted him, you gave him a standing 8. If that's the case, the fight's over. You cannot let someone fight at that much of a disadvantage. So unless you get just scraped with a knee and you both stand up and you're both good to keep going, okay, keep going. But if the ref has to stop the fight to check if you're okay and you're laying on your back from a knee, they should call the fight. That's it. Matt Heffler says Aldo has looked amazing at 135 with the exception of the Yan fight. I thought he fought well in that Yan fight. I thought he fought really well in that Yan fight. I think that Yan is just a consummate striker that's going to get the better of most people around. I think that was his first fight at bantamweight, and maybe the cut had something to do with his performance. Maybe the cut had something to do with his performance, but I didn't think his performance was bad. I thought he fought an extremely good fighter in Peter Yan, and Peter Yan got the better of him. He still did a lot of nice things in that fight, man. That was a good fight by Aldo. Oh, and then once you know who Peter Yan is, like what Peter Yan ended up doing, then you're like, fuck, that fight was pretty good by Aldo. It's not always the results. Unfortunately, everything's like win, lose, win, lose. It's very binary, but sometimes people have poor performances and they win. But in his case, his performance wasn't bad, but he lost. I think if he had fought anyone not named Peter Yan, he would have looked really, really good. Ofon says, Ahmed, he's willingly becoming the heel, so he's trying to draw it out. Probably. Ofon says, at Matt Heffler, Aldo actually looked really good for the first round and a half. I agree. Matt Heffler, true, but he laid on the ground in the second, not Aldo, like looked gassed. Man, you don't know what happens in those fights as well. Like people don't like you fight a guy like a Peter Yan that's landing shots, landing body shots to you, landing different things to you. It's not that simple. You know what I mean? It's not, or you also feel that this guy's on a different level to you in your striking. You can feel things. So I don't know why he did this or that or that. Overall, I don't know because I don't know Aldo and I'm not in his head, but I do know that he looked good and he got outstruck by a better striker, in my opinion. Duchess says Sterling was losing every aspect of the fight. He's not the real champion, in my opinion, and I don't see him becoming a champion. Not by DQ, although I think he's a likable person. I do think that Sterling was losing the fight. I do 100% agree with you. But he did get DQ'd with an illegal shot. Like Peter Yan did get DQ'd by an illegal shot. He took the belt. He wins. That's it. There's nothing. There's nothing can be done about that. Ofon says nobody's disputing the knee was illegal, man. What people didn't like is that Aldo took the win, which people got to understand because of the money. He has to take the win. Well, the other guy got disqualified. It's got nothing to do with Aljamain. Aljamain can't. He can't say, no, I'm not going to take the win. It's a win. He took the win. What I think of the tougher fight. Dude, I thought those two guys, I said it at the start of the show, those two guys hit each other so much, man, and so hard. I was so impressed with Jared, man. I was so impressed with the fact that he was, one, able to take those shots. Two, he was able to get out of the way of a lot of those shots. He ducked under. He showed like some really impressive movement and some good boxing. He's able to land some right hands down the pipe, get his foot outside of Tuffer's lead foot, throw those body kicks, throw those head kicks. You got to understand, man, those shots that he was landing on Tuffer with those kicks in particular, man, they're coming from a heavyweight, landing them on the arms, on the towards the head, Tough as taking it on the glove, but still. Um, and Tough is really, really light on his feet. I love the way he kind of just slides in when he's light on his feet when he kind of slides in and throws that left hand down the pipe. And I thought that he was going to land it on Jared and that was going to be the wrap, but he did, and it wasn't the wrap, and he didn't land it flush like he would have needed to. I think both guys just showed off in like absolutely granite chins and warrior hearts, man. Like to see like a slugfest like that at heavyweight is rare, like with big hitters like that. It's you don't see it a lot. Ophon says at Grange TV, I mean, I hope you're right in regards to Peter beating Font. Oh, I can't. Don't put money on it. I'm just saying. I think that Peter Yan would beat him, but I think Font's a hell of a fighter. Ophon says, and somehow welterweight is fairly stale, even though there's so many good fighters there. I think welterweight and heavyweight. I mean, welterweight and middleweight outside of kind of like Rob and Israel, but even them, they're like 30 now. You know what I mean? They're at the peak. Um, there's Till and Till and Kevin Holland. They're young guys, mid-20s, mid to late 20s, but there's not a lot of like and then the rest are kind of older. The division kind of got a bit older, and it doesn't have the same like a few years ago when you had Romero, Rob, Weidman, Jacare, and these guys were younger, like say 4 or 5 years ago. Gastelum, Uriah Hall, Luke Rockhold, Tim Kennedy was still fighting. There was just fucking good people everywhere. You know what I mean? There was. It's the divisions change. You know what I mean? And then out of nowhere, a couple of good guys appear, young hungry guys appear, and boom, it takes off again. But it became like that. Yeah, welterweight's a little bit like that as well. Like you see some of those guys are still there and they're getting on a little bit in age. Interesting. Very interesting. Ahmed says at Ophon, his neck snapped, so I don't think he was acting whatsoever. I don't think you like that. That's what my point is, Ahmed and Ophon, and both of these kind of thing. I don't think that it matters whether he was acting or not. Like he got hit flush, like it was a flush knee to the head. That's it. That he got hit that hard and that flush. That's a fight, man. You know what I mean? Because if knees were allowed, if knees to a grounded opponent were allowed, and he landed that knee, that would be the fight. He would have fell on his back, and Peter Yan would have teed off on him. Matt Heffler says, I don't like the Kessa call out. Matt Heffler, I think Wonder Boy deserves it more. True. Ophon says, I'm going to have to agree to disagree there, but I'm not here to argue with anyone, bro. Matt Heffler, are you? Yeah, I think the thing that you're saying, I think you're kind of not even disagreeing, to be honest with you. He definitely deserves a matchup, but I think the UFC doesn't want a boring title match, which it probably would be at best, says Ophon. Maybe. Just seeing athletes switched on versus when they're off is interesting, but so confusing. I'm not familiar enough with fighters to know if one is on or off, but in other sports, I know guys where this happens. Are there any fighters that you see this happening? Like, yeah, man, sometimes you have bad days, man. You have bad days and it happens. Whatever sport you're doing, whatever things you're doing, whatever. But I will say this, like when you have a bad day and the other guy has a good day, that's also like that is what it is. Like you can't because when you have a good day and they have a bad day, you don't take away your win. You don't say, "Oh, well, he was having a bad day." So you just go there and you turn up and you do your best. And if the other guy's having a bad day and you have a good day, well, tough titties. And it's the same thing, vice versa. So that's all part of the game. Ahmed says, I respect your opinion in a civilized manner. No need to debate about it. Things happening. It is what it is. Look at these two guys. Ophon says, yes, sir. All goods. Wash hands. Look at these guys, mate. These guys are gentlemen. I love you guys. You guys are the best. Juice says, hope my question made enough sense. We have limited characters. Ophon says, I mean, they're basically asking Sterling if he wants millions of dollars to take the DQ win. Of course, any reasonable person would, especially if they have a family. That's why I was saying to you, I don't think you guys are disagreeing. I think you guys are actually agreeing on the same thing. Like you're just coming at it from different perspectives. Of course, you're gonna if they ask you, oh, are you going? Yeah, do you want the DQ win or do you want to risk more damage? Come on. And it isn't millions of dollars, anyways, by the way. Joshua Kirstein says, the hate is a childish storytelling and contradictions. If it was real, it wouldn't be what it is. I don't understand, Joshua Kirstein, what you mean. Aldo looked great against Peter. I have to say I agree. Ali says Peter Yan's opponents always fade in the fight. Always. He causes it. Ali, you are 100% right, my friend. That's a lot of people don't understand. Like, if you grapple someone, right? If you grapple someone that's a better grappler than you, and he can't tap you or she can't tap you, and you're constantly getting out of submissions, stopping them from passing the guard, blah 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 blah. By the end of however many minutes, eventually you're going to get more tired than them, provided that you're both the same physical fitness. You're both the same physical fitness and you kick off and they're a better grappler than you, then their application, this strength is the best technique is the most efficient application of strength. So they're going to use less strength because they're better technically than you. And they're just going to wear you down. And with striking, it's exactly the same thing except that with striking, you have the added bonus of being damaged. So people will hang with Peter Yan on the feet until they don't. They'll hang for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes until they don't. And that's why you see the guys just start to fade. He just starts to land too many shots. Your neural system starts to fatigue because you're constantly reacting to what he's doing. And he just beats you up. Matt Heffler says, fair enough. My Aldo bias is showing. Haha. Man, I'm a huge Aldo fan. Huge Aldo fan. Ahmed says, Prime Jose Aldo leg kicks were just straight up absolutely disgusting. My legs start hurting me when I watch Jose Aldo's old fights. Yeah. Mike Brown, when he bashed Uriah Faber, was brutal. Absolutely brutal. Ahmed says, Kelvin is really young as well. Yes, he is. Kelvin is really young as well. Duchess says, the talk from the upper body to the torso to the legs in Aldo's leg kicks is like a painting in motion. Yeah, man. He hits so hard, man, like that. He kicks so hard. Chase says, hey, Fab, good to see you, bud. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Ahmed says, Yoel Romero is one scary, terrifying man. Yes, he is. Yes, he is, sir. Yes, he absolutely is. Ali says, Cody's chin looked solid in this fight, but it looked like he didn't believe in it or was worried that he wouldn't take the shots. We have never seen Cody backpedal like this for an entire fight. What happened there was, I think, this is just my hypothesis, it's not necessarily correct, but one of the things that Cody does do is backpedal into the cage, and he goes side to side with his head, dips under and rolls, and counters from that with the right hand, with either an uppercut or an overhand right, or he finds the side doors out when he's up against the cage. What happened in this situation, though, Rob Font was too clever for it. He didn't rush in, and he just held Cody up against the cage, not physically held him, but just stayed in that range and cut off the cage. So he could just take one step, keep Cody there, feint. Cody had to react to the feint. He didn't know when the shots were coming, and Rob never fully loaded up and got into that slug, into a war with him. So it was just landing those shots, bum, 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 bum. So when Cody would backpedal into the cage to try and get out the way he usually did, Rob Font has obviously watched this, knew what he was doing, and didn't let that happen. You know, he just stay there on the outside, feint. When Cody would counter with a big right hand, Rob was already able to slide out of the way and counter once again with a jab. Because you can counter a jab with a right hand, but Rob, one, had the reach advantage, two, had the better timing, and had already landed too many of them. Wael Esmail says, I think Cody was in an impossible situation. Cannot close a distance and afford to do work with Font's diverse striking. Can't fight from a distance because of a missile of a jab. Kind of like what I was saying. Joshua Kirsten says, love the live. Great info and insight. Thanks again, Fab. No, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. that more or less, guys, is my take on the fights. Like I was just curious to see what everyone else thought about it. I think we have a weekend without fights coming up, so I don't know what that's going to be like. We will try and get through this together, people, without having the fights. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys very, very, very soon. Thank you very much, guys. Matt Heffler, sorry, just before I leave, Matt Heffler says, hate that Rumble Yoel got cancelled. Apparently, Romero has a wandering eye and couldn't pass medical. That was going to be one of the juiciest affairs of all time. I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't talk on that one. Wael Ismail says, you're the best, man. Cheers. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Juice says, thanks. Thank you, guys. Um, Ahmed says, thank you so much. Have a wonderful and great one. Peace. Thank you, guys. Take care, man. Look after yourselves. Oh, Joshua out of nowhere. When we all thought it was over, Joshua comes in swinging. Joshua Kirstein, 299. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate the support. Any and all support is appreciated. Thank you very much, guys. Take care, guys. Look after yourselves.